Poets are like prophets. Both are a little crazy and perhaps even socially awkward. And of course, no one really knows what poets or prophets are actually saying. And yet, Jesus tells us today in our passage from Matthew that we are supposed to welcome the prophet. Jesus himself was called a prophet and spoke poetic parables into being that never seemed to make sense right away. One of my favorite poets of our day is Wendell Berry. He wrote a rather prophetic poem called Manifesto, the Mad Farmer Liberation Front. Here are a few snippets of this poem. So friends, every day do something that won't compute. Love the Lord, love the world, work for nothing. Take all that you have and be poor. Love someone who does not deserve it. Put your faith in the 2 inches of humus that will build under the trees every 1,000 years. Wendell Berry is a man of the land and a man of faith. An ancient Hebrew prophet named Jeremiah would have been friends with Wendell. Berry says, "Put your faith in 2 inches of humus." Jeremiah would say, "Buy a field, put your faith in land worth nothing." You see, land is of high value and of high wisdom in agrarian societies such as those of ancient Hebrews. Now, I know many of you grew up on the land. Land is vital to survival and can easily be forgotten and forfeited in cultures that consume everything already made. Land is a matter of life and death. Land grounds our lives and our faith that too often looks more like pie-in-the-sky escapism from the God who ushers in a kingdom on earth as it is in heaven. The earth in which we all live is a symbol of how our faith is forged deep within our hearts. The earth, the land we walk, for even just a snippet of cosmos time, teaches us how to live by means of prophetic practice. Faith is prophetic practice that Jeremiah uses to give God's people hope in the midst of despair. Let me tell you a story of Jeremiah in the city of Jerusalem. The city of Jerusalem is under siege at this time by King Nebuchadnezzar and his fierce Babylonian army. Jeremiah is standing with the guard and the rest of the Hebrew people behind the city walls of Jerusalem. It's complete chaos. The world appears to be ending. People are frantic, the future looks grim. Fear is filling the hearts of all those who watch and wait for death to come knocking on their front doors. Jeremiah is in the court with the guard and is having a conversation with the current king, King Zedekiah. The king is looking for hope, for wisdom from the weeping prophet Jeremiah. But Jeremiah tells him the grim news. The world is about to change, and it's going to be ugly at first. The world for a bit will be in disarray, and hope, like God, will feel far, far away. But then the prophet Jeremiah sees beyond the present doom and gloom. And a word from the Lord comes with a strange proposal for King Zedekiah. Jeremiah says, "Don't give up hope. Instead, buy a worthless field, for redemption is coming. What a strange, absurd recommendation. It kind of sounds like these few lines from Wendell Berry's Mad Farmer. Expect the world to end. Laugh. Laughter is immeasurable. Be joyful, though you have considered all the facts. Practice resurrection. God's kingdom here on earth calls us to prophetic action, to practice resurrection, which often begins with what may feel like a foolish, rather ridiculous way forward. For the Hebrew people, in the middle of war, in the middle of madness, God opens a door of hope for tomorrow for those who are willing to embrace faith today. Faith is prophetic practice in the midst of a grim reality. I mean, let's think about this situation with Jeremiah and the king. No sane person buys land in a time of war. No rational person doubles down when the cards are all against them. No one builds in the world when it seems to be crumbling all around them. I mean, who puts good money in land that will be conquered? What a foolish financial move, and yet the prophet Jeremiah puts his money where his mouth is. Instead of spiraling down in fear, Jeremiah doubles down in faith. We, like Jeremiah, live in a time where the world seems to be at siege. It's hard to even watch the news anymore. From Fox to CNN, fear is used as a weapon against our faith. And hope seems lost. Story after story of violence, corruptions, and the vilification of everyone. Our fear makes villains out of peaceful protesters because of a few violent groups. Our fear vilifies all police because of deadly, violent acts from a few cops. Our fear victimizes our positions on politics and even personal opinions while vilifying people who think different, live different, believe different, and maybe even look different. The land where our hearts have made a home is now under siege, and our faith is paralyzed by the harsh reality of where we are today. But prophetic practice is faith, and faith is trusting God in the bleakest of moments. What if today God was calling you to invest in land where your heart never dreamed it could make a home? A land where opinions were different from yours. Beliefs were foreign to your own upbringing. A place where you might even experience redemption. This land purchase Jeremiah speaks of is an act of redemption, an act of faith that gives hope for all. Faith is something we religious folks love talking about. I mean, we love sharing our faith for the sake of others, but we rarely live out our faith for the sake of our own souls. Too often we think of faith as declaring something to be true, but faith must always leave room for uncertainty, or it wouldn't be faith at all. If we knew 100% that our choices, our opinions and perspectives were all true and would pay off tomorrow, then we certainly wouldn't need faith. Faith is moving into the unknown, listening to a different voice, seeing from another dimension other than your own. Faith is trusting God today and the voices of those different from your own. But this is trust, true faith that requires complete surrender, a surrender to the mystery of God in the other. A God who can never be pinned down, boxed in, or even fully comprehended. Trust is faith today, giving us hope for tomorrow. By purchasing the land in the midst of Jerusalem's destruction by the Babylonian army, Jeremiah is practicing resurrection with his prophetic action, an act of faith today that will produce the hope of salvation tomorrow. We must be people today willing to take prophetic action. I know some days the depths of our courage is controlled by the circumstance. If all is well in the world, we feel brave, like we can conquer anything that comes our way. However, when we feel out of control, when we feel that our way of life is under siege without our consent, our courage begins to falter and our fear begins to bully. Courage, like faith, cannot intertwine with shallow ideologies that toss us to and fro of the waves of everyday life. Courage, like faith, must come from a deep place within our spirit, a place that holds strong in the face of chaotic winds, a place where God dwells, where the Spirit of the divine centers our souls and brings us peace. Peace called shalom. This is the place where the Holy Spirit dwells, where we receive courage to welcome the prophet, even when her words might be difficult to digest. Jesus says, "Whoever welcomes a prophet in the name of a prophet will receive a prophet's reward." Welcoming a prophet is an act of radical hospitality. Those who decided to welcome the prophet into the home of their own hearts would receive a blessing from God. And that blessing was shalom. The Hebrew word for shalom refers to much more than just peace. It implies wholeness, a healing of good health. I wonder, what would it look like for us today to receive the prophets of our world? Those poetic words being proclaimed for the sake of salvation, those voices declaring hope for a radical future ahead. What if we were willing to receive a word that could one day bring shalom for all the world? I mean, yes, our world would look different. Yes, our church, like our country, would have to change. Yes, our hearts would have to make a home in a different land. But my God, shalom could then bring forth wholeness for our world, healing to our hearts, and a new vision for our church. Amen.